Dali na natin. Josie ka muna. Hindi, dali na natin. Saan ba daan? Hindi, sabay na tayo. Binigyan nito, ako pa hindi mo binigyan.
Without worshipful,
you will then conduct them to the seats prepared for them. In accordance with the teachings of our institution, it is our duty before entering upon any great or important undertaking to invoke the aid and blessing of God. Let us therefore reverently unite with our chaplain in an address to the throne of grace.
Great architect and ruler of the universe, we reverently invoke thy blessing at this time. Grant us thine aid in our present undertaking, that all we may do shall be done with an eye single to thy service and to the good of Freemasonry. May those who are now about to be invested with the government and conduct of this lodge be endued with wisdom to instruct their brethren in their duties, and may they be continually guided by the unerring counsel which thou hast given us in the great book of nature and revelation. May brotherly love, relief, and truth always prevail among the members of this lodge. May they be impressed with a comprehension of their duty to thee and to each other, that each lodge may be the means of lasting good in their community, and to thee we ascribe all the honor and glory. Amen.
So mote it be.
You will now join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of our country. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I would actually like to welcome Brianna Kundenbeer, who is the Pope of Oak Summit Assembly 128, and she will present us.
People look at me and think that I am just a piece of fabric with 13 stripes and a background of blue with 50 stars on it. People have done bad things to me. People have written songs, poems, books, and many other things, like movies, about me. After all, I am the flag that represents freedom. I represent the men and women who have and are still fighting for our country. These soldiers are our fathers, mothers, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, and grandparents. I salute them and so many others. I have seen them fight for your freedom as I was being torn, burned, and tossed. I saw many battles and stood tall over those battles to remind the men and women of the freedom they are fighting for. I have changed over the decades. With many stars and stripes I may have, that the most change I have shown is when you changed my red stripes and blue background to a background of black with one of my stripes changing to the color of silver, white, blue, red, orange, yellow, or green. I changed to other colors to represent other things in life, but one thing that I will not change is that I still wave proud to be your flag.
Brother Master of Ceremonies, you will present the senior and junior stewards. Sorry about that.
Worshipful sir, I present for your installation Brothers Lee and Hedges, who have been appointed junior and senior.
You have been appointed stewards of this lodge, and I will now instruct you in your duties. In olden times, your province was to superintend and provide for the festivities of the craft, to assist in the collection of dues and subscriptions, and to see that the tables were properly supplied and every brother suitably provided for. In modern times, however, the provision for actual refreshment has diminished, and your principal function will now be to prepare candidates for admission and to perform those duties which Masonic custom has assigned to you on days of procession. Receive the jewels of your office with the white rods. been appointed marshal of this lodge, and you will now be invested with the jewel and symbol of your office. I forgot to let you actually present that.
That's all right.
I'm honestly not in a hurry. I just. Oh, thanks. Yeah.
Kaya pala hindi kayo nagsagutan sa Bible.
The baton is an emblem of command. You will present the senior deacon.
Which will serve. I present to you for installation Brother Brown, who has been appointed senior deacon for this lodge. This certificate vouches the proficiency of the senior deacon.
Brother Brown, you have been appointed senior deacon of this lodge, and you will now be invested with the jewel of your office. This jewel indicates that it is your province to attend upon the master and wardens and act as their proxies in the active duties of this lodge. It will be your especial duty, Brother Senior Deacon, to carry orders from the worshipful master in the east to the senior warden in the west and elsewhere about the lodge as required. Attend to all alarms at the door of the preparation room, receive and conduct candidates, introduce and accommodate visiting brethren. That rod, my brother, distinctive of your office, will now be entrusted to your care.
Which will serve. I present to you for installation Brother Morrow, who has been appointed chaplain of this lodge.
Worshipful brother, that holy book which adorns our sacred altar is the great light in Masonry, and forever sheds its malignant rays upon every lawful assemblage of free and accepted Masons. Teach us from its life-giving precepts. Invoke upon our labors the blessings of that divine being whose infinite goodness it so fully reveals and unfolds to us, and guide us by its lessons of wisdom and truth. And you will have faithfully fulfilled your important trust. It is your duty to perform those solemn services which we should constantly render to our great Creator. and reverently to allure to brighter worlds and lead the way, and thus by elevating our thoughts, strengthening our virtues, and purifying our minds, prepare us for admission into the society of the blessed in the realms of life and light eternal. It is fitting that an emblem of the sacred volume should be the jewel of your office, and with it you will now be invested. You will now take your proper place. You will present the secretary-elect.
Worshipful sir, I present to you for installation Brother Dew, who has been elected secretary of this lodge.
Great man. Worshipful Dew, you have been elected secretary of this lodge, and you will now be invested with the jewel of your office. I am persuaded that in your hands the pens will make an enduring record, not only to your praise, but also to the welfare of this lodge. It is your duty to observe the will and pleasure of the worshipful master. Keep a faithful record of all things proper to be written. Transmit a copy of the same to Grand Lodge when required. Receive all monies from the brethren. Pay the same to the treasurer, and take his receipt therefore. You will now take your proper place. Be taken to your proper place, something like that. Yeah. Present the treasurer-elect.
Worshipful sir, I present to you for installation Brother Alcorn, who has been elected treasurer of this lodge.
Worshipful Alcorn, you have been elected treasurer of this lodge, and you will now be invested with the jewel of your office. The keys have a twofold significance. They are instruments to bind as well as to loose, to make fast as well as to open. They will never, I am confident, be used by you in any other manner than that which the Constitution, laws, and regulations of the lodge shall direct. You are to receive all monies from the secretary, keep a just and accurate account thereof, and pay the same out by order of the worshipful master with the consent of the lodge. You will now take your proper place.
Worshipful sir, I present to you for installation Brother Salvador, who has been who has been elected junior warden of this lodge. This certificate vouches for his proficiency.
Brother Salvador, you have been elected junior warden of this lodge, and you will now be invested with the jewel of your station. The plum, my brother, admonishes us to walk uprightly in our several stations, to hold the scales of justice in equal poise, to observe the just medium between impertinence and intemperance and pleasure, and to make our passions and prejudices coincide with the line of our duty. To you is committed the superintendence of the craft during the hours of refreshment. It is necessary, therefore, that you should practice moderation and discretion in the indulgence of your own inclinations, and that you carefully observe the means of refreshment are not converted to improper or excessive use. Your regular and punctual attendance is particularly requested, and I have no doubt that you will faithfully execute the duty which you owe to your present appointment. Look well to the south. You will present the senior warden-elect.
Worshipful sir, I present to you for installation Brother Armstrong, who has been elected senior warden of this lodge. He is of good morals, true and trusty, and possesses the love and confidence of his brethren. This certificate vouches for his proficiency. Say 3 or 4.
You sure about it? All right. Worshipful Armstrong, you have been elected senior warden of this lodge, and you will now be invested with the jewel of your station. The level, my brother, demonstrates that we are all descended from the same stock, that we partake of the same nature and share the same hope, and that although distinctions among men are necessary to preserve subordination, yet no eminence of station should make us forget that we are brethren. For he who is placed on the lowest spoke of fortune's wheel may be entitled to our regard, because a time will come, and the wisest know not how soon, when all distinction save that of goodness shall cease, and death, the mighty leveler of human greatness, reduce us to the same state. Your regular attendance on our stated meetings is essential. In the absence of the master, you are to govern the lodge. In his presence, you are to assist him in the government of it. I firmly rely on your knowledge of Masonry and attachment to the lodge for the faithful discharges of the duties of this important trust. Look well to the west. Brother Master of Ceremonies, you will now present the brother who has been elected to discharge the important duties of master of this lodge.
Worshipful sir, I take pleasure in presenting you Brother Dunn, who has been duly elected to serve as master of this lodge.
Is it known that Brother Dunn is well skilled in our ancient crafts? Is he zealous in his regard for the interests of our order? And is he duly qualified to discharge the special duties of the master's chair?
It is well known that he is all of this, worshipful sir. This certificate, vouching to his proficiency, is evidence that he is well skilled in our ancient craft. I find him to be of good morals, trusty and true, and he is a lover of the fraternity. I doubt not that he will discharge his duties with fidelity and with honor.
Worshipful sir, the brethren of this lodge, reposing confidence in your integrity, in your zealous regard for the interests of Masonry, and in your ability to discharge the duties of the master's chair, have chosen you to occupy that honorable position during the ensuing year. Are you willing to accept this important trust?
I am.
Then, my brother, I shall most cheerfully proceed to install you in the dignified and honorable position to which the suffrage of your brethren has called you, not doubting that the dignity of the Oriental chair will be well preserved in your keeping, and that the interest and welfare of this lodge may be safely confided to your charge. Before commencing your investiture, however, it is necessary that you should signify your assent to those ancient charges and regulations which point out the duties of the master of a lodge, and which on no account are ever to be neglected or departed from. They are as follows. You agree to be a good man and true, and strictly to obey the moral law. You agree to be a peaceable citizen, and cheerfully to conform to the laws of the country in which you reside. You promise not to be concerned in plots and conspiracies against government, but patiently to submit to the decision of the Supreme Legislature. You agree to pay a proper respect to the civil magistrate, to work diligently, live creditably, and act honorably by all men. You agree to hold in veneration the original rulers and patrons of the Order of Masonry, and their regular successors, supreme and subordinate, according to their stations, and to submit to the awards and resolutions of your brethren when convened, in every case consistent with the constitutions of the order. You agree to avoid private piques and quarrels, and to guard against intemperance and excess. You agree to be cautious in carriage and behavior, courteous to your brethren, and faithful to your lodge. You promise to respect genuine brethren, and to discountenance impostors and all dissenters from the original plan of Masonry. You agree to promote the general good of society, to cultivate the social virtues, and to propagate the knowledge of the art. You promise to pay homage to the Grand Master for the time being, and to his officers when duly installed, and strictly to conform to every edict of the Grand Lodge or General Assembly of Masons that is not subversive of the principles and groundwork of Masonry. You admit that it is not in the power of any man or body of men to make innovations in the body of Masonry. You promise a regular attendance on the committees and communications of the Grand Lodge on receiving proper notice, and to pay attention to all the duties of Masonry on convenient occasions. You admit that no new lodge should be formed without permission of the Grand Lodge, and that no countenance should be given to any irregular lodge or to any person clandestinely initiated therein, being contrary to the ancient charges of the order. You admit that no person can regularly be made a Mason in or admitted a member of any regular lodge without previous notice and due inquiry into his character. You agree that no visitors shall be received into your lodge without due examination and producing proper vouchers of their having been initiated in a regular lodge. These are among the ancient charges and regulations of free and accepted Masons. And to these your assent must be freely given. Do you submit to these charges and promise to support these regulations as masters have done in all ages before you?
I do.
Then, my brother, in consequence of this assurance, and with full confidence in your capacity and zeal, I will now install you as Master of Escalon Lodge number 591. Brother Master of Ceremonies, you will invest him with the jewel of his station. The square, my brother, is an assembly. We're in assembly. Any good. The square, my brother, is an emblem of morality, and as it is the especial badge of the master's office, it should consistently remind you that not only by precept but by example you should promote good morals among the brethren, and thus endeavor to avert the shadow of any scandal or reproach against the fraternity. Your former life has given evidence that this jewel will not be an unmeaning symbol in your hands, and I solemnly charge you to take good care that its luster be not dimmed through any act of yours. I now present to you the Book of Holy Writings. It is the great light in Masonry and should ever be the great law of the brotherhood. It will guide you to all truth. It will direct you to eternal happiness, and an attentive regard to the divine precepts it contains will ensure you success in the fulfillment of the duties you are now about to assume. The working tools of our craft will next be presented to you, that, as the master workman, you may instruct the craftsmen in the various duties and virtues which they have been selected to illustrate. The square teaches us well to regulate our every action and to let our conduct be governed by the principles of morality and virtue. The compass teaches us to limit our desires in every station and never to suffer our passions or our prejudices to become the masters of our judgment. The rule directs the undeviating discharge of all our duties, that we should press forward in the straight path of right and truth without inclining to one hand or the other, in all our doings having eternity in view. The plum is an emblem of moral rectitude. It teaches us to avoid all dissimulation and to pursue that honest and upright course in life which will tend to our elevation in the higher realms of immortality. There are still other things which you will receive in charge. This book of constitutions you are expected diligently to search, and from time to time cause its contents to be read in your lodge, that none may remain ignorant of the precepts it enjoins, or the ordinances which it promulgates. This book contains the bylaws of your lodge, which will be your especial duty to see carefully and punctually executed. And this is the charter, under the authority of which your lodge is held, and which you are carefully to preserve and duly transmit to your successor in the master's chair. Brother Master of Ceremonies, you will conduct the master to his station in the east. ascension to this time-honored seat. The duties incumbent upon you in your exalted station are fraught with grave responsibilities. Remember that the honor, reputation, and usefulness of your lodge will materially depend upon the skill and assiduity with which you manage its concerns, and that the happiness of its members will be generally promoted in proportion to the watchful care with which you cherish the genuine principles of our institution. For a pattern of imitation, consider the great luminary principles of Masonry to warrant any distrust that you will be found wanting in the discharge of your respective duties. Suffice it to say that what you have seen praiseworthy in others, you should carefully imitate, and what in them may have appeared defective, you should yourselves avoid. You should be examples of discretion and propriety, for it is only by a due regard for our laws and regulations, as shown in your conduct. Please rise. My brethren, such is the nature of our Constitution, that as some must of necessity rule and teach, so must others, of course, learn to submit and obey. Humility in both is an essential duty. The officers who have been chosen to govern your lodge are sufficiently conversant with the rules of propriety and the laws of the institution to avoid exceeding the power with which they are entrusted. I therefore trust that you will have but one aim, to please one another and unite in the grand design of promoting happiness. Finally, my brethren, as this association has been formed and perfected in so much unanimity and
By order of the most worshipful Grand Lodge of Free and Accepted Masons of the state of California, I now proclaim the officers of Escalon Lodge 591 to be duly installed.
All the brethren will, under the direction of the Master of Ceremonies, salute the worshipful Master by the battery of 3 times 3.
Together, brethren.
Worshipful Master, behold your brethren. Brethren, behold your Master.
Ceremony, and the brothers talked me out of that, and I'm glad they did now. It's nice to see you all here today. And hopefully I pronounced your name right, Brianna? Excellent job. That was really good. Okay, I'd like to begin by allowing to recognize some of the more important people in our community. We'll be past masters of this lodge, Escalon 591. Please stand for self-introduction.
Eugene Bosch. I've been master since one time in 1975. And I can't remember the other two, but I've been master of the lodge 3 times. And it's been great.
I just wanted to say, 3 hours ago, Gene didn't know we were going to have an installation. I forgot to tell him. You're still limber, I guess.
Ed Armstrong, 1987, 1999, 2000, and 2011.
Just introduce yourself. Okay. Doug Alcorn, 1995, I believe. That works for me.
Michael Faircloth, past master 3 times. I'm not going to try to remember the years right now.
Oh, I guess I'm a past master.
Oh, yeah. Forget about that guy.
Matt knew 3 minutes ago.
Brady Matron of Escalonia, chapter number 447, and Ray, I look forward to working with you this year with my dad as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Valley Lodge, number 135.
Romy Dominguez, Modesto Lodge 206.
And John Thompson, Oak Summit Lodge, number 112.
The Hiram Award is an award given.
My name is Tommy Farr, and I received the Hiram Award from Turlock Lodge, number 395, now 236, in Turlock, in 2005.
Rodney Owen, Oak Summit Lodge, I have no idea what it is.
David Brown, 2 years ago.
Doug Alcorn, I believe it was 2005 also.
Worshipful. Art Mara, and that was so long ago, but it came from our sister railroad lodge down the way, we called Irving number 459.
Ed Armstrong, 1995.
Eugene Bosch, Escalon Lodge, I asked him to go first because I was after him.
David Okamoto, District Inspector for the 438th Masonic District that oversees Mount Oso Tracy, Tyrian Lodge in Antigua, of course Escalon Lodge and Oak Summit Lodge in this area. Thank you for having me.
You do a lot of stuff for this lodge behind the scenes and rarely get any kind of recognition for it, so I really appreciate you. And introduce any loved ones that you might have.
What would you like?
Introduce your wife, Gene.
I'm sorry, it is with great pleasure that I introduce the pride of my life, my wife, Karen Lodge. If I could say something, I am an old member of this lodge, and I take a little, I don't know what you'd call it. I want to say something, and I want to say something to you. I knew your father when he was master of this lodge, and I thank you for going through the line and becoming the master of this lodge, because I know that it's in good hands, and you've got a full corps of officers, which this lodge needs, and I am sure that your term as master will be one that will be thought of often by all members of the Escalon Lodge. Thank you. Thank you. I need all the help I can get.
I remember one of my first degrees, I really had trouble remembering stuff, very nervous, and I just blew it basically. I had to talk through it. And I was hurting pretty bad when I got down to the refreshments, and you met me down there, and you said some things that would pick me back up. And I really, to this day, I still remember that.
I remember it too, Ray.
I'm here by myself today, Ray, but I want to also take this opportunity briefly to explain that, or to let people know that my first introduction to this lodge was through, except through Lesdu, who brought me in, was with Ray, who was the investigator, came to visit my wife and myself, and we were very impressed with your character and what you had to tell us about the Masonic and Freemasons. We appreciate that.
Thank you, sir. And great, your attendance has been coming up, and you're much more involved, and we're hoping to keep you in the fold, and you're voicing your concerns in the stated meetings, so keep that up. We really like to hear your voice.
Thank you.
Junior students and be recognized. And I know you told me, John Chan, I'm on site up here. Tied them together because I thought it was going to be pairing them. You know what? I'll just use this sort of stuff. Thank you, sir. Come on up to the rest of the altar, John Chan. John Chan and I worked together for 6 years at Memorial, and I know how smart he is. This guy's super smart. English is his second language, though, so some of the words and stuff from Masonry he struggles a little bit. But he has told me he wants to get back in the fold and get out if he can, and we look forward to having him. Thanks so much. Rise and recognize me. Introduce any family members or loved ones.
I have with me today my wife Denise and my very good friend Carrie Haston, his companion Tracy Martin.
You've been a mentor to me, and you're already have taught me a lot about the business of the lodge, and I really appreciate your support. I don't think I would be here without Kent. He assured me that he can help me with some of the business, and I really appreciate it. Rise and introduce the loved ones.
Worshipful Master, she's been at it for 40 years. I guess I owe her everything. My wife Marlene, she's sitting right there.
West of the altar. Worshipful Art spent probably three days with me practicing my proficiency for this degree, and we had breakfast together, and he spent a lot of time preparing me for this. And, well, just like Kent, he has been a huge support for me throughout the time.
Very nice. I'd just like to say that it was a pleasure when Riverbank consolidated for me to come here and also be a part of this lodge. I've known all the brothers in there, especially the older ones, for many years. It's a pleasure to be here. And had I known you were a troublemaker in Mariposa, I could have got a lot more information out of you, but there's still time to go. Okay, thank you.
Since I've known this lodge, you're always here, always working, always doing stuff that nobody recognizes. And I really appreciate it, and I hope everything goes well with your rehab.
My wife, I don't know.
Oh, yes, sir.
If I can. I'm not sure if I can. We've been 43 years. My wife died at Alpha.
First of all, would like to introduce my wife Annabelle, my wife for 15 years. We also have our 2 kids, my youngest son Athens Theodore, and my daughter Gabriel Salvador. Thank you.
You're the guy that got me into this lodge, and I really appreciate that. And we work together also. We work together now, and we worked together in the past. And I really look forward to working with you here in this lodge as well.
That's what's my first name.
All right. I have my sister, Leslie Dew, and my nephew, Mason Dew here.
You've done an excellent job for the past year, and I think that you really move this lodge in the right direction. There's a new energy of collaboration and teamwork, and I look forward to working with you further. You also got us involved, this is for you, you got us involved in the Scottish Rite last year, or the Scottish Games.
Scottish Games, yeah.
Put on by the Scottish Rite, and you were telling me out there that you were considering maybe competing the following year. So I brought you this, Eastville, It's only 15 pounds, but if you move it because of the leverage, it's very heavy. It's all good stuff. I noticed some of those guys out there doing some stuff over their heads. So.
And I got something for you too. This is the master pin I've been wearing all year, every event. I've been wearing it, and so I'm just going to pass it along now that you are master.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Short notice, and something to play the birds in there, Basil Hayden, and Peter Park for Home Depot. I know you're doing your backyard right now, so hopefully that'll come in here. If you're not sure if you're eye on me, I'm going to put my hand in my hat like this, and that's the master sign of a punchline. You know, last October, my niece, John's sister, was married up in South Lake Pablo. I don't know if you guys noticed out there, they have a little outdoor chapel. Really beautiful. It faces the lake. A little bit cold, but a great place to have a wedding. Anyway, when I got there, I was really surprised that John not only ushered my niece in and gave her away, but he also stepped behind the altar and gave the ceremony. And he really killed it. He had us all in tears. And afterwards, I said, John, that was really impressive how you did that. I said, but how can you do that? Is that legal? And he told me, yeah, I'm an ordained minister. I went through the Universal Life Church of Modesto. So all the way down the mountain, I was thinking, wow, that's impressive. He went out and became an ordained minister just so he could, give away his daughter. He must have had to learn a little bit of Hebrew, a little bit of Greek, read the Bible from cover to cover, know how to do funerals and stuff like that as well. So when I got to work on Monday, I told an X-ray tech across the hall, well, I've got a renewed respect for my brother now. He went out and became an ordained minister to do the wedding for my niece. And she said, did he do that through the Universal Life Church of Modesto? I said, yeah. She said, it takes about 5 minutes. Just punch in your name, punch in your address, answer a couple questions, click on a button, and you're ordained. But I was thinking maybe today those roles might be a little bit reversed. You might be thinking, well, he made a master of the art at the lodge. He must have done a lot of great stuff. But not really. I got a lot more to do. I think it was my turn for the most part. But when I was struggling with the thought of doing this, I remembered that I became a Mason mainly because I wanted to learn. I want to learn about myself. I want to learn about the craft, and I want to learn about my relationship to God. And I figured that if I did this, I would probably get more of that than I would sitting over in the West another year. So I want to keep learning, and I want to help other brothers that come in keep learning. Last night I was at Worshipful Dave's house doing my proficiency, which isn't a really good example, doing your proficiency the day before installation, but he allowed me to vent a little bit about some stuff. And one of the things I was saying was, why are some of the brothers sometimes getting roughed up a little bit because the lodge doesn't have enough participation? And he kind of set me straight gently, but I won't quote him or anything, but when I was driving home, I realized that, it's all about that candidate. It's all about Brother C. For all of you that don't know what that is, or any of you that don't know what that is, that's what we refer to the candidate in a ritual practice. If we're not sure what his name is, we'll call it Brother C. And I realized that everything we do, from our budget, to audits, to practices, it's all geared to make sure that person coming into us can enjoy this kind of stuff and maybe move to what we call further light. So I thought it was kind of ironic. We have an initiation next week, and the gentleman's name is Cody. So anyway, the title of my speech tonight is it's all about Brother C. Anyway, thank you very much. Seated until the officers and their families recess
course, I'll have one presentation, actually two presentations for excellence. Thanks. Again, Dave Okamoto, District Inspector. One of the duties that I get in my job is to appoint an officer's coach to each lodge within my district. And I have the pleasure, of course, of appointing Worshipful Brother Kent Armstrong, if you'd join me in the west, or in the next to the altar. As always, I thank you for accepting the appointment and for stepping up. You've been doing a great job, and I look forward to this ensuing Masonic year. You're doing a great job this year. Thank you. Thank you for all your work. To the altar. Thank you. Thank you. So, as representative of the Grand Master, our wonderful state of California, I take pleasure in presenting to you Worshipful John Trauner's pin, Most Worshipful John Trauner's pin. So wear it with honor and pride.
Wala. Ayos ko.
What time do we start, bro? Maybe an hour out.
It's up to you.
Yeah. Maybe 5:30, 5 o'clock. Just text me. You wanna come? We're gonna do it at their house. Just a little bit of.
Pwede na yun.
Hey, that was good. Chicken salad.
Sisig.
Very good.
Uwi ka na? Pake lang muna. Okay. Congratulations, Dad.
Congratulations, Daddy.
What else?
No. I'm very.
How about you, Ate?
Baka magtakip lang muna si ate.
Or you wanna say to your dad?
Congrats, Daddy.
Dad, I love you.
Yung Ilocano style.
The future master here in Escalon.
Wala kayo.
Yeah, wala. Next year na eh.
Yeah. Hindi pa alam. Lalaman natin in the future.